Bambus with color changes that shouldn't have color changes, top layers that are looking kinda rough, overextrusion issues, and when printers attack. All this and more at PrintFix Friday, episode 129. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here and you're struggling with 3D printing, we are here to help. We love to help you, and for those of you that have reached out to us, thank you for helping make these videos possible. I've got a bunch of the ones that have come through via email that we've been working with you guys, so I hope that you are getting back to printing with purpose. And if you do need some help, you can reach out to us on all the social media, slide into those DMs, or email us directly, youtube@3dmusketeers.com. I will say, if you're going to slide into DMs, Twitter is probably the best. That's the one that I monitor the most personally. So if you don't want to send an email and you do want to get to me, Twitter. It's generally the right way to do it. We have some interesting fails for you, as well as kind of dealing with the elephant in the room. I got attacked brutally by a 3D printer, and this time it wasn't a Voron. You don't have to watch your back, Steve Builds. It's okay. This one wasn't on you. Love you, dude. Let's just jump right into it with a Bambu that's having a sudden change in texture or color. Depends on how you look at it. Why the sudden change in texture? We have a Bambu Lab X1 Carbon, and we can see that it goes from shiny to not shiny. This has to do with print speed. The faster you print, the lower your effective temperature is, especially when you start to get to the edge of what your hot end is capable of doing. This we see as a very common thing with Bambu printers, and we've seen it on ours as well. It's why we made the switch to the E3D Bambu Lab nozzle, and well, a video coming up on it soon. The box has got a little bit messed up. I carried them all the way back from the UK. Sorry. That higher flow hot end and nozzle combination makes it so this kind of thing is never actually a problem anymore, because your hot end is capable of flowing so much material that it's not actually that big of a deal. So in a case like this, you got a couple of options. One, slow the printer down. And if you bought a, over $1,000 printer, like I have, you don't want to slow it down because it can print that fast. And so you go to option 2, which is turn the temperatures up. The problem is, for the area where it is already shiny, that's already pretty hot. So if we just work in the area that's matte, maybe you can get it. So if you can try to figure out where that step occurs, you can change it. This is more than just a cosmetic problem, though. This extends beyond cosmetic and into actually mechanical, because those colder layers have less interlayer bonding than you would get from a normal shiny print where there is extra heat. So while it's not that big of a deal, it does start to matter when you're doing mechanical stuff. Top layer / skin issue. Newbie here, anyone got ideas as to what's causing these inconsistent gouges? It's an Ender 3 V3 KE 0.4 nozzle, 0.2 layers, 2 walls, 2 skin layers, which I think that's the same thing. 4 top and bottom, ironing on 300 millimeters a second for print speed. Retraction is 0.8 at 40, I think. Filament is 3D Prints Jupiter Series 220C 60. Bed is auto-calibrated for print. First layer looks fine, and slides are perfectly fine. I'm guessing that's like the rails. Just using Creality's own slicer. Stop that. Help is much appreciated. First off, go to Orca Slicer. Don't use Creality's bastardized version of whatever slicer they ripped off and called their own. Just go to Orca Slicer. It's the KE, so it is the Clipper variant, which I've certainly been enjoying using Clipper recently, so I'm really excited to see more machines with it, but I don't like the way that some companies implement it, where they fork it and then they just remove useful features and lock it down and call it their own. I got a problem with that. Definitely have some issues with our top layers. This is going to be due to that ironing. What is occurring is you are slightly under extruding here, or it appears you are slightly under extruding. So when you go over and do the iron, it's not producing enough plastic to do the iron properly. Traditionally, we don't mess too much with the ironing settings, but I generally only do ironing on the Mark IIIs behind me, because while they're slow, they actually do a damn fine print, especially when you turn ironing on, and can look just absolutely chef's kiss beautiful. I would think that for your ironing, make sure it is very slow and quite a low extrusion multiplier. I think we use like 15%. It's something really, really tiny. And it does a great job of just kind of smoothing out that top surface and works great for our case. What you can first do here is calibrate your extrusion multiplier and your steps per millimeter. I would first start with the steps per millimeter, verify that when you measure 100 millimeters above the hot end and then you extrude it, that 100 millimeters stops right at the hot end, assuming that's where you started from. Theoretically, that 100 millimeters can be anywhere in the chain, just someplace where you can measure the start and the stop to make sure that it traveled the 100 millimeters that you were expecting. Then, at that point, try this again, because then we should have solved our extrusion issues, and theoretically this should be solved at that point as well. Partial overextrusion on top layer for shorter lengths. Having this odd issue with overextruded and rough portions on my top infill layer on this print. As you can see, most of the layer is fine, but in the areas where the moves are shorter, such as around the holes, I'm seeing excessive buildup and roughness. Any idea why? Have you tried a bidet? I think that takes care of those. Anyways, I'm printing with Hatchbox PLA Plus on an Ender 3 S1 with clipper and precise their 0.4 nozzle, 0.2 layer height. They've experimented with lowering the top infill width all the way down to 0.375 from 0.42. It improves things slightly, but the issue still remains. Also slowed down the top infill 50% without much improvement. Also experimented with the infill orientation without much change. Cooling is at 100%. I have an upgraded 5015 fan shroud, so my cooling should be better than stock. Certainly hope so, because stock cooling on an Ender is bad. All right, so we are just overall over extruding. This should be a pretty easy thing to do. You should be looking at cutting your extrusion multiplier down rather than cutting the width down, because the width doesn't really change how much material is flowing when it should be. It's still going to flow too much. It's not like the lines are still the same distance apart. It's just doing more lines when you make the extrusion width smaller. You're just over extruding a little bit. If that is that big of a deal, you can dial it in. But I would say the rest of this print looks okay. We have some pressure advance issues. You see how these corners are not very sharp? They're kind of blobby. That's going to be pressure advance. So I think if we look at tuning our pressure advance as well, that might get rid of the over extrusion problem. I would start with the pressure advance and see where that goes. We do have a heavily modified 3D printer. And yes, an Ender 3 with clipper and all that, it qualifies as heavily modified. I'm sorry. And looking at this, it looks like we might have a pressure advance issue. I would start there, and if that fails for some reason to make it look better, I would then look at just reducing my extrusion multiplier by maybe 0.5%. You are really close to having a beautiful print, and quite frankly, this is passable unless it's a sellable part. Like, unless this is something for a client where you are trying to sell this for money, I would think this is perfectly acceptable for other use cases, personally. Wavy Vertical Supports. Looking for some guidance on this, or if it's even an issue, aside from some brittleness, the main print is good. Orca Slicer, normal supports. Neptune 4 Pro, Elegoo PLA, it's 220 first layer, 200 the next. Bed temp is 60-65, pressure advance is 0.26, print speed is max 500, probably should be millimeters per second, not meters per second. It can't go that fast. When we're dropping down to 200, I wouldn't bother doing that. I would leave it at the 220. I think that's a better move for what you're doing. But if the way these supports still hold your part and your part doesn't get messed up, then we don't actually have a problem here. And with the 45-degree angle, it has the tendency to have the support remove more cleanly because it tends to be more sturdy since it's printed at an angle rather than just printed normally. I did the leveling yesterday. What causes the printer to do this? I'm new to 3D printing. I got the printer 2 days ago. Well, hey, welcome to the industry. You probably didn't think some random YouTuber was gonna be talking about your print, but here we are. Every tall print does the same. I have an Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro. Is that one of them newfangled variable valve timing, but maybe it's variable cylinder timing? No, come on. This is a pretty simple one. Check the grub screws on your motors for your, I'm assuming your X-axis. I honestly don't know what direction this is all happening in, but if I'm correct, this print is also designed to be printed flat, like with the back portion down on the bed. So I think we've got a bad orientation to begin with, but we do want to check to make sure that the pulleys can't move on the motor themselves. If it can, which I'm fairly certain it can, you're going to want to move the bed away from the motor, go ahead and loosen the grub screws, pull it off, pull that entire little pulley mechanism off, then find the flat on the motor. Slide the pulley back on and tighten a grub screw down onto the flat. There should be another grub screw that just gets tightened wherever it gets tightened. But having one on the flat is very, very important. It should keep it from doing the racking motion that we're seeing here. This is caused by literally the inertia of the print, causing that little toothed pulley, if you will, to basically come forward. And then as it goes to pull backwards, it will also go back a little too far as well. Sometimes those moves are faster than others, which will cause the shift to be more violent in some areas than others. But I do believe this print is designed to be printing with the surface back there. That should be on the build plate. I don't believe they're designed to be printed vertically like this. So this has nothing to do with your leveling. That's not your fault. This is a manufacturer thing. And it's why I do recommend that if you do have a new printer, get yourself a bottle of the blue stuff. And no, don't get that from your medicine cabinet. Those are different pills. This is just the blue Loctite. This is the JB Weld Permalock. It doesn't matter what brand it is. Just make sure it's the blue stuff. Don't get the red stuff because that will never come back off. I just buy this in bulk because, you know, the 13 milliliter bottle is bulk from my local Rural King, which if you don't know what that is, it's redneck Walmart. Yes, it gets worse than Walmart. It's awesome. But they sell stuff like this for pretty darn cheap. And I think it was like $8. It'll last you a couple of years, as long as you're not just squirting the stuff everywhere. You need a very small drop of it, put the screw in and you're done. Alternatively, poor man's Loctite is also easy to do. Little glue stick will work just fine. You didn't get that from me though. It works, it's just not supposed to work. So let's talk about this. So if you guys didn't see, we just released a video on the Magneto X, the printer from PO Poly that we have been beta testing for over a month now. And in fact, PO Poly had no idea that we were going to be filming this video. The media embargo is passed, it's fine. They actually just messaged me as I'm filming this video, letting me know, hey, it was great. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I bled for YouTube. This is like the third or fourth time in a few weeks where a printer has hit me in the head or hit me somewhere and caused me to bleed. You don't want to get hit by this printer. It will hurt you. Keep kids and pets away from it, please. This is an unfortunate spot because, of course, on Wednesday, I had an event called Synapse Summit here in Tampa where I was out and around a bunch of people and I looked like this. So while we were filming, I could have sworn an acorn hit the top of the printer and I did a couple of action rolls, and in that process, I hurt my head. No, I'm joking. And if you don't get that joke, I'm sorry. It's not really a joke, but it's stupid Florida things. Just look up cop versus acorn. You'll see what I'm talking about. But no, as we were filming B-roll, I lifted my head up and smacked into the bottom of the screen. And if any of you know anything about head wounds, yeah, it was a bit of a mess. Unrelated subject, we're currently developing a TPU shroud to go over the screen on the Magneto X. There's no real reason for that at all, but you know, we're doing it, so that'll be a thing. If you want to get that file, we'll have it available on Patreon, YouTube channel members, and all of that, so you can grab it if you would like. And at the $10 tier and higher, of course, you can come hang out with myself and all the awesome 3D Musketeers crew in our private Discord server where we edit these videos live for you guys. We talk about things going on in the industry, and you get to see super sneak peeks as soon as I can legally talk about what we're able to do well before it goes out to the general public, which is a super cool thing for you guys to get involved in. And you get to come talk to me all the time. Some of you might see that as a benefit, some of you may not. By the way, super thanks to the pro Chad move. For the guy that said that we were never going to release the Bambu log video, said that if we did, they would join the $100 tier on our Patreon, and they totally did. So, Giga Chad move right there. You, sir, you get a shout out in this video. I want to give the net on that, which I think is like somewhere in the $80 range, to whatever charity that you would like. However, I would recommend that we give it to the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation. I would like to donate that money because it's I don't know, it kind of feels a little dirty to take that money. I'd rather it go directly to a charity. So thank you, sir, for doing that. Yeah, OP delivers. It just takes time because posting schedules and things take a while to film. Let me know if you ever bonked your head on a 3D printer so bad you got a cut. We should just start adding TPU bumpers to things, because apparently I need everything wrapped in bubble wrap all the time. I know I'm not alone in this. Next up, kind of a fail from Player Conveyor, where they have a Bambu Lab X1 carbon and the AMS started sticking. Let's take a look.
One of the rollers in my Bambu Lab AMS is starting to stick, which I think a bit of lube might help with. Luckily, in here somewhere, I've got, aha. Let's try a little dollop on there and give it a quick spin, and it seems to have helped. But just to be sure, let's put a quick print on and, oh, what the? Oh, it's a magic wand.
Cheeky. And you're also cheeky because there is editing trickery going on here, and unfortunately, their solution is not right. This is a Bambu Lab X1 carbon with an AMS, and what is happening is that as the spool is coming to the end, this spool is almost empty, and the spool he replaces it with is not almost empty. It gets light enough to where the AMS just grabs it and pulls it up. There are a couple of different ways to deal with this. One, shut the lid to the AMS. That tends to help it. Two, you have to add weight to it. This is one of those downsides to the multi-motor system that is the AMS feeder. Don't get me wrong, the AMS is one of the best multicolor solutions for a 3D printer out there. I would say the Prusa MMU3 can hold a candle to it, but I don't have one of those, so I can't test it. But from what I'm told and what I've seen, they're pretty comparable. They both waste a ton of material. The way to solve it for the Bambu is just to put weight inside of the spool, which is stupid. Honestly, this is just a bad engineering design. And yes, technically, just replacing the spool fixes the problem, but no, lube isn't gonna fix it. Do you notice how much more filament's in that roll? It doesn't happen with mostly full rolls. It only happens with mostly empty rolls. So while I don't disagree to lubricate bearings on a reasonable maintenance schedule, this is not the actual right solution. Your solution was just to replace the spool. The grease had actually nothing to do with it from my perspective. I'd love to know what you guys think in those comments below, because personally, I'm a little bit uneasy with this because people that are dealing with this problem will be misled into thinking it's just a grease issue when I don't think it's a grease issue. I'm firmly under the camp that it's just the AMS being the AMS, because even a brand new factory lubricated, which I guess doesn't really say anything, machine will have the exact same problems, and it's why people have created extra weight. Some people will use old stepper motors. I've seen canisters that people fill with desiccant, so it actually has, you know, a multi-purpose aspect to it. I've even seen ones where people use like lead fishing weights or lead car tire weights, just as long as you know, fully encapsulate that to make it safe. I don't really care either way, but this one to me, I really don't think it's a lubrication issue. If you have actually tried this and it worked for you, I'd love to know. But from my perspective, it's not a lubrication issue. And traditionally, I would be the one telling you that it is a lube issue. Because when in doubt, lubricate. By the way, I want to update from last week where we showed off that really bubbly spool from Polar 3D. Mitch found it. And one of our fans who lives in the area got it and is sending it to us. So I want to know down in those comments, what do you guys want to see? Because I'm thinking bubble lamp. I think it would look super cool to turn it into a bubble lamp, but I would love to know your thoughts down in those comments, because we are getting that spool and I am so unreasonably excited for this. I'm so happy. Thank you, JL Stern, for making that happen. Thank you to Mitch from Polar 3D for finding that spool for us. And dude, if you ever have any other cool stuff like that you would love to see turned into crazy fun art projects, send it my way. We will do videos on it and build out a cool art project. I would love to do something like that. Could we get sponsored to do it from Polar 3D? I don't know. This one I'm doing because I think it's cool. The next one, maybe we'll have to talk about some financial stuff. But thank you, Mitch from Polar 3D, for making that happen. And thank you to JL Stern for getting it shipped over to us. It is on the way here soon, TM. So keep an eye out for it on the channel. I'm so excited, like unreasonably excited to get that spool. and I hope you guys are too. Just like I'm excited to list the names right next to me who are our $5 tier and higher Patreon, PayPal, or YouTube channel member subscribers. Of course, all of that is available, linked down in the description down below, where you can subscribe and leave a like if you haven't already. But thank you to those awesome people and that #1 guy who is the $100 guy for everything that you guys do in making these videos possible. Thank you. Right below me will be the entire PrintFix Friday series, and next that will be a random video. Maybe it should be the Magneto X. It'll be the Magneto X. I can feel it. But that is all I have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Who's gonna sit? It's gonna sit in her bed. Ma'am. Ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am.